I'm Caysie Ashton.
And I'm Delaney Rannells with the Wildcat Report.
Last night at parent-teacher conferences, both parents and teachers got a lot more than they were expecting when a fire broke out in the kitchen due to the motor for the ventilator catching on fire. They were evacuated from the building, and then when it was safe to return, they came back in school and resumed what they were doing.
Another problem that's arisen in the Millard community is sports-related concussions. Lillian and Craig investigate it with more information.
Concussions are one of the most common injuries from high-impact sports. In order to treat them more effectively, our district has added a few changes to the policy.
Concussions are not new, but handling this new procedures is new for us, and so Millard has created a 10-step process, and so it's like every new process, it takes a while to learn and communicate.
That's actually quite a few changes that just went into our district this year. The return to learn policy states that the athlete must have accommodations made in the classroom as recommended by his physician when he's him or her assessed for a concussion. They must complete the return to learn requirements and have no accommodations being made in the classroom before they return to the field to participate.
The new policy change, I heard it consists of you don't have to do homework, you don't get homework, it's the last 12 days, I believe, and then you don't have to take tests, and if you do, you can go in a quiet room and take them by yourself.
That I think they're very necessary. One of the things that's concerned us many times is that we don't want a student who is recovering or has suffering from trauma to their brain to be rushed back quickly onto the field.
I think the policy would probably be good because when you have a concussion you don't focus as well.
Students and teachers explain their concussion experiences and what they've heard about them.
I've had to deal with 4 concussions. Just kind of, you hear a pop, and then the next thing you know, you're looking at the ground, and you don't really know what's going on.
But we also have just learned a lot of things about concussions the last few years, about students' ability to think and react.
Athletes are required to take the impact test to determine if they have a concussion.
The impact test is just a bunch of memory and reflex tests and all that stuff to see if you're concussed. They take a baseline, and then if you get a concussion, then you take the test again. And if you score a score lower than what your baseline was, then you have a concussion.
The impact test, it gives you a lot of different words, and then it'll ask you to count backwards from 25 to 1, and then it'll ask you, was this one of the words?
If you or someone you know has a concussion, be sure to check with the physician and let your coaches and teachers know. This has been Lillian and Craig with the Wildcat Report.
A couple weeks ago, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge trend spread like wildfire across social media. I was nominated, and I thought it was so cool how fast it spread around my Instagram.
Even though I wasn't nominated, I loved watching the videos.
Holly has discovered somebody who has a story that brings so much more meaning to the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge.
On Thursday night, Millard West varsity volleyball defeated Millard South with a score of 3-2. In the tiebreaker set, they won 15-10.
Dana and Carigan have more updates for you in the Sports Corner.
For some Millard West students, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge was just another summer trend.
Woo! Second. Woo!
But for senior Cole Endorf, it meant much more.
With the Ice Bucket Challenge, I think more people have, researched it and that stuff and kind of figured out what it is and that kind of stuff. But if they could, see what an ALS patient goes through.
My dad did the Ice Bucket Challenge even though we didn't actually use the ice bucket. We used packing peanuts.
The Endorfs have experienced the challenges of ALS firsthand because Cole's father was diagnosed with ALS in September 2012. Some symptoms include muscle weakness, speech difficulties, and even paralysis.
First, it was in shock, but then after a while, over a while, I was really depressed, but I kept it kind of inside and didn't really talk about it much, and I used to be very outgoing, and then I just became more introverted, and I didn't like talking to anyone anymore for a while. So that's kind of what happened to me, and I kind of grew out of it.
Say cheese!
Fundraisers like the Ice Bucket Challenge and the Walk for ALS, which took place in August, helps raise both money and awareness.
Last year, from 2012 2013, the only amount of money we ever got for the entire year across America was $2.4 million, I believe. And within the month of the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge happening, we've gotten over $100 million. So that's a significant bonus, even if not all of it was even used for research.
I don't want to empathize, maybe some, I have sympathy and that kind of stuff, but not any pity parties, and that type of thing.
Everyone that should know that ALS doesn't have a cure right now, and it's a really serious deal, even though it's more rare amongst people than stuff like cancers, but it's still just another disease that is hurting people and kind of hurting families as well, so it's something that should be taken seriously.
With just a few weeks left to live, Principal Greg Tiemann granted Doug Endorf's final wish to see his son, Cole, graduate in a private ceremony. Are you happy and ecstatic that you got to see Cole graduate?
Probably the thing that was most memorable is always him coming after work, because my mom runs a daycare, so all the kids would go running up to my dad. All the kids would go running up to my dad because he was so playful all the time and always loved having fun and playing outside with them, playing rather like baseball or something like that. So I thought that was always the coolest thing, seeing how nice he was.
This has been Holly Pridie with the Wildcat Report.
On your mark, get set, go. Cross country had a meet at Walnut Grove last Friday, September 12th. The team took second with the help of junior Josh Klein, ranked 11 in the state.
I think I've done all right. I mean, I'm ranked 11th in the state right now, which isn't bad, but I'm not happy with it, so I think I can do better, but that's just my opinion. As a team-wise, we're hoping to win state this year, but you have to have 5 guys that can do good. It's not just one person does good and then the team can do good. You have to have 5 guys.
The boys tennis team hosted the duel against Millard South Tuesday night. With all the double players winning, Millard West varsity boys won the duel 7-2.
Oh, we played pretty good. I don't know. They weren't that good, but yeah.
The Wildcats lost a tough match to top-ranked Papillion La Vista on Tuesday night. The teams tied 12 times in the first set, but junior Cassie Loberg put the set away on a kill.
Within the 4 sets, I had nine kills. I would say that we came out super strong, and then I think our intensity just kind of died down throughout the game. But we're really working on trying to get more team unity going, and our skills are there. We're doing really successful with our stats and everything, but I think our attitudes are we just need to improve on that, and it's definitely going to be accomplished.
The next 3 sets didn't serve our way, with Papio giving girls varsity their second consecutive loss. 20-25, 25-20, 25-10, and in the 4th set, 25-21. Millard West varsity softball team got to swing their bats at home last weekend when the Wildcats hosted Metros. In the semifinals, Millard South defeated West 6-1. The girls didn't accept a loss for long when they defeated Burke 8-0 Tuesday. Kristen Van Hoosen and Emily Klosterman both with home runs for the 10-4 Cats.
We kept scoring a few here and there every inning, and then we did what we were supposed to do, so it was a good game. I'm excited to see how we do at state because the teams above us I know are beatable, and we've played them for like 4 years now, so we know them pretty well, so it'll be interesting.
Let's finish off with a little bit of Friday night football. The Wildcats were 1-2 after their first home game win against Lincoln East, 42-21, September 12th.
Thomas did pretty good. I mean, he's a really, really good player, and he always has a motor and is probably one of the best players on our team and knows what he's doing, and he's a pretty good captain as well.
Halfway through the second quarter, 3rd and 5 Wildcats settle into I formation. Another handoff to Russell, who found a hole and broke through the Spartans' defensive line to run in a 70-yard touchdown. 1 minute, 26 seconds left in the second quarter. Wildcats set up on the 41st yard line. Fakes the handoff, drops back, passes, missed the intended receiver. The ball bounces up, and Wildcat player Caleb Conway brings it in to run the rest of the way and put the Wildcats ahead 21-0.
When we started getting up on them by a bunch, I thought we were just going to kind of shut them out the entire game, and that would have been pretty cool, have our first shutout of the season. But, we still got the W, and it was cool to have our first win of the season.
Preston Humphrey catches the kick return on the 15-yard line, breaking through all of Lincoln East's special team to score an 85-yard touchdown. Lincoln East made an attempt to fight back, but the Wildcats showed them what they can do on home turf, winning 42-21.
I think we're going to do pretty good. They aren't necessarily the best team ever, but we still got to just put them away and put them away early so they don't have any hope.
Don't forget to catch the next live football game. Use the URL below and follow us on Twitter at MWHSPawprint. This has been Dana Huard and Carigan Wiegand with Sports Corner. Thanks for watching.
If you find yourself unable to attend a lot of these sporting events, on October 2nd for the homecoming football game, Will Morris and Taylor Charleston will be there with a live broadcast. The link to this broadcast will be available on Twitter and Facebook.
Students are not only getting excited about the homecoming game, but the homecoming dance as well. Sarah and Milan were able to speak to some teachers and uncover some awesome homecoming memories.
Or 69 rather, during the interview, like consistently doing things poorly.
That actually was a pretty good response because you're able to elaborate.
With homecoming right around the corner, excitement is in the air. But something we don't think about is that at one point, our teachers were getting ready for homecomings of their own.
My first homecoming was my senior year of high school, and it was exciting.
Rockin', because the music was pretty fantastic. I was wearing a sparkly orange dress that went to about my knees or so.
I went with friends. So we had a large group. I was in band in high school, so we had a really large group of just people that wanted to go. So we just all kind of piled up into this old 60s VW van.
I went with a group of friends. There were a whole bunch of us that met up beforehand, so it was a really fun time.
This year, homecoming will be held on October 4th in Wildcat 1. Tickets will be sold at lunch for $10 and $15 at the door.
The first homecoming was basically just an opportunity to hang out with friends and wear different clothing. I wore a bowler cap and suspenders, so that was neat. And the theme was Mardi Gras themed, and I was trying to look as Cajun as possible.
My favorite romantic moment in homecoming was when my date, instead of taking me out to dinner, he actually made dinner for me. And there were candles, and it was very romantic for a freshman.
There's somebody I wanted to ask, and I did, and we went homecoming together.
Well, comparing my homecoming to the current types of homecoming, I don't think there's much of a change, really. There was less grinding back in my day and actual dancing. And we actually wore the uncomfortable shoes.
I think that nowadays, from working the dances and stuff and being able to compare them, that it definitely, they make a little bit bigger deal out of it. Probably one of the biggest differences is the DJs and the sound systems and the lights are a lot more extravagant.
My funniest homecoming moment is when I made my date cry. Don't ask me what I did, I have no idea. His friend came up to me later and said, you might want to go find your date. He's in the bathroom crying. I left, I was done.
This has been Milan Bonner and Sarah Krieber with the Wildcat Report.
You may have noticed students and staff sporting purple ribbons last week. They were distributed during QT to recognize Suicide Awareness Week.
As a part of this week's event, a walk was held to draw awareness to suicide specifically in the armed forces. Dani and Marissa were able to attend and bring us more information.
Since 2005, over 49,000 soldiers have committed suicide. The Department of Veterans Affairs also reported 22 veterans and 1 active soldier take their own life every day. That means that every 65 minutes, a soldier commits suicide. There are now more suicides among active duty soldiers than there are combat deaths.
Shoulder to Shoulder, a suicide prevention walk for the armed forces, brings awareness to the community.
I started working as the National Guard Suicide Prevention Program Manager in December, and one of the things that I looked at was Suicide Prevention Month is in September. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and so that was the inspiration, and once I got started, I started talking to Jennifer with the coalition, and kind of went from there.
This being the first annual of this event, the outcome was substantial.
We were hoping for 100 participants, so we more than doubled our goal.
This event brought in participants of all ages throughout the Metro Lincoln area. Some reasons are different than others.
I have a friend and roommate that passed away by suicide.
My wife tried to commit suicide a lot of times before mental illness, and I've done it before in the past, like 17 years ago, so I can identify with what the servicemen are going through in some ways in terms of depression.
I think it would raise awareness for the cause, and so I think it's a great event.
It makes a sense of community and makes you feel connected with other people, and it's fun to run with friends and get outside and enjoy life.
Help support the cause, because when we stand shoulder to shoulder, no one fights alone. This has been Marissa and Dani with the Wildcat Report.
You know, Delaney, I was really impressed with the number of students who actually participated and wore the ribbons for Suicide Awareness Week. I thought that was really cool.
I agree, but to end on a lighthearted note, Dani and Ellie have looked at teachers' embarrassing moments.
Out of the 2,619 people that walk through the halls of Millard West every day, 210 of them being teachers, some are bound to have embarrassing moments during their time in high school.
When I was in high school, we played a game called Fugitive, and was running it through a yard at night, and basically ran into a clothesline. Had a big red mark across my face, and had to go to school the next day with this huge line going across my face. Needless to say, I got a lot of people asking me what the heck happened, that, you know, what to have a huge line coming across my face, and had to tell that story to several individuals that next day. That is my embarrassing story.
My most embarrassing moment as a teacher has been my second year of teaching. I had a student do a very obscene gesture, and then I had to go and repeat this gesture in front of Mr. Preminger and our principal at the time, Dr. Riklowski. Very embarrassing.
My most embarrassing moment as a teacher. It was 1994. I was a young teacher and a coach in a small school, and I was poor. So I took the liberty, as a few other coaches and teachers did, of washing my laundry in the training room. And I had left all my delicates, aka underwear, in the dryer. And the athletic director thought it would be funny if he secretly placed all of those in my classroom, which would have been funny, but while I was teaching class, as the students were opening up, and they had little individual lockers in the classroom, they were opening up the lockers and they were saying, somebody's underwear is in my locker. And I was like, what? Whose underwear is in the locker? And then I heard again, hey, somebody's underwear is in my locker. Ultimately, there was about 13 or 14 pairs of underwear, mine, in all the students' lockers. Fortunately, they were clean, and fortunately, I used bleach. That was my most embarrassing moment as a teacher. I played it off like I didn't know it was whose underwear it was, but I think they knew.
One of
my embarrassing moments was this year when I came to my usual classroom and started teaching a class, and then the actual teacher walked in and told me I was in the wrong room. I tried to teach a class that I wasn't the teacher of. Sad.
Most embarrassing moment. When I was an 8th grader, my dad was an administrator at the high school that I was going to go to, and they were in charge of putting together a new recruitment video, and my dad asked if I would be willing to kind of participate. So I did, and it was one of those cheesy, you sit at the piano and you play, and then you turn your head to the side and you look at the camera and say, this is one of many opportunities at blah 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 school. So I did it, was playing, and I turned, gave the camera the best version of this as I could, and did not realize that I had a really big low hanger popping out of my nose. So the person filming it didn't realize either, and that video gets run every single year at all of the middle schools for 8th grade when they're seeing what opportunities every high school has to offer. So me and my big famous fat booger are just on record for who knows how long until they record a new one.
My most embarrassing moment teaching was when I was starting at a brand new school and we were using the computer lab. My students decided that the computer lab was too hot, and so they decided to open the window, and the student, he took his arm to open the window, and he pushed open the window, not using the metal part, but using the glass part, and all of a sudden what I heard was what sounded like a gunshot. And of course I was terrified, and so I turned, and when I looked, his hand had actually gone through the window. And so I asked him, are you okay? And he said, yeah, I'm fine. And he pulled his arm back through the glass, and about 3 seconds later, his arm exploded in blood. And I knew that he wasn't okay. Well, it turned out that the library was right across the hallway from the principal's office. And so I had to take this bloody student across the hallway right over to where the principal's office was and explain what happened. And yeah, that's my most embarrassing moment teaching ever.
I had way too many to just pick one, but I had to go with one that I thought of right away when you asked me, and that is when I was a freshman in high school. I was walking in the hallway, talking with a bunch of people, thought I was pretty cool, wasn't paying attention to where I was walking, and I walked straight into a post, a metal post, and hit my head on it. Got a big goose egg, swelled up right away, but the embarrassment was worse than the pain from the goose egg. It kind of looked like that post right there, but I'm talking full speed into that thing.
Delaney Rannells. And I'm Caysie Ashton, and this has been the Wildcat Report.